Alrighty everybody, welcome to another SH Monsterarts review, and I am very excited to look at what we have today, which is finally a new version of Mecha G from Godzilla vs. Kong. So yes, Bendai has finally released a new version as in the Final Battle Edition. So what does that mean? 3 years ago, they released the very first Monsterverse Mecha G figure. I absolutely love it. I got that figure the second the pre-order window came out, which was 2021, and in 2022 when it was actually released. So the review was quite a while ago. There was quite a big gap between that one and this one. I'm sure no one really expected this one to appear, but I am not complaining. I didn't expect Bendai to make another one, yet here we are. Regardless, I am very excited to see this because this also comes with the Proton Scream, has a bunch of other accessories. This is as close as you can probably get to the movie-accurate 1-to-1 scale replica of the Mecha G design. Before you continue this review, if you want to check out the review for the old one, which is right here, it will make an appearance in this video later on. Watch that review if you haven't, so you can see my thoughts on it. And yes, I made that 3 years ago, so the environment and the tone might be a little different. That being said, let us focus in the present now and review the Final Battle edition of Mechagodzilla. Let's get this bad boy out. Alright, here it is, and wow, this thing looks great. Even if it's just in the box. The box art, this red background really just shows the Terminator vibe you get out of this Mecha G. Godzilla vs. Kong. Mechagodzilla from Godzilla vs. Kong 2021 Final Battle Edition. SH Monsterarts always has tongue-twisting mouthful titles. Some other logos down here, other logos here, and make sure when you buy this, make sure you have this sticker. That's the authentication sticker because I have seen too many fakes of this very figure. Here's the top, here's the bottom, here's this side, here's the other side, and finally, the back of all these amazing glam shots. Look at that, you got rocket boosters, you got the electric punches, you got the proton beam. Oh my god, this is gonna be awesome. Accessories is definitely what was lacking in the previous Mechagodzilla figure. I remember complaining about that in my review, and they completely made up for it in this one. I will save my judgment for when I actually get everything out of the box, because all I am doing right now is judging a book by its cover, so let's get this bad boy open. Alright, I did some sorting. There is some assembly required, but for the most part, everything is nice and arranged. And there is an instruction sheet. I think this is very integral to making sure you put the pieces in the right places. So do pause the video if you want to read this in full detail. I will probably need it, but I'm not going to bore you by reading this on camera. So pause the video if you want to look at this. And then here's the other side. The diagram of everything, so yeah, instruction sheets, because this is like a Lego set. There's a bunch of different components, each with different purposes. Very important. The one thing I was complaining about the previous Mechagodzilla is that it was lacking a proton scream, and I guess they fixed it with this version. I mean, if they're going to re-release a new design of the same character, they better include something new, otherwise it's just going to be a repaint, and people are going to complain about that. We've seen many examples, but this proton beam is pretty much what I was expecting. It's, you know, I wasn't gonna expect a full straight red laser beam, although that would be nice, but I do want some texture to go with it too, so that's pretty nice. So this is kind of like Godzilla's heat ray, but red, and it's obviously not as like flamey. It's definitely more lasery, if that makes sense. It's great, it's solid, pretty hard plastic, so that's nice. It's not bendy, and overall I think the translucent red stands out very well on it. And then at the very end, it kind of, on the impact piece, it kind of fades into white there. I guess that's That's the color disintegrating into the impact. I mean, it does make like a red-white beam when it hits something. So yeah, that's the proton scream. Very nice. And then, in addition to that, we have, I guess these are like the plasma rays, plasma punches. Obviously, he's got some electricity coming out of his hands. He's not Palpatine, but he does punch with these electric charges. So plasma circles, things, whatever they're called. I don't know the exact name for this. Soft, but also pretty solid, like firm plastic. So it's soft on the outside with the actual like electricity bits, but then you have the main, ball inside, which is much harder plastic, which is pretty nice. And so yeah, I think overall these are pretty good designs, so quite happy with that. And then we have I guess we'll show you the additional blade for the end of the tail. So one thing that the tail lacks is it's in his like off position. We don't actually have a piece where the tail has its blades up and spinning. So this is the piece for it. If you want to have the tail actually spinning and actually looking like it's gonna like drill, this is the piece to do it. It's pretty straightforward compared to the standard dormant piece where all the blades are retracted onto one side. And then we have the closed hands, or these aren't exactly closed per se, but these are more closed fists, if you will. This kind of looks like evil villain plotting fingers, if you will. Yeah, I guess it's just another alternative closed hand if you don't want his open hands. You don't want that. You want him in more dormant position. These are the hands to do it. Additional pieces there, which I always keep dropping on the ground for some reason. Then we have the stand. Now you may be wondering, don't these stands normally come with flying titans? Mechagodzilla doesn't fly. Well, apparently his proton beam doesn't really have an attachment point in the mouth, so therefore it's heavy. It's gonna topple over. So the job of this is to literally prop up the proton beam. That's literally its job. Put that in, boom, yada yada, very nice. And then that is intending to hold the proton beam up. And I do believe it comes with, it doesn't come with, I thought it comes with a little suction cup thing. It doesn't. Oh, wait, hold on. Yeah, it has a hole here. Okay, so you don't put it in one of those like clippers. There's a hole on the proton beam itself, and then what you do is just do that. Wow, there you go. So that's secured here, right there. Okay, you know what? Bendai's actually stepping up their designs here. That is nice. So this will prop up the proton beam. That's the whole reason why this exists, and I'm glad it exists. I'm glad it's here. So that's the stand, and then finally, but definitely not the least, we have the rocket boosters. I will definitely be assembling this onto the mecha here, but before we do that, I just want to show you the parts. So these are the boosters themselves. So we got 6 of them. So I'm just gonna try my best to hold it up like this. There you go. Look at it, very nice. Then we have the rocket fuel flames themselves. Yeah, just plastic pieces. Yeah, very nice, very straightforward. Obviously, the whole idea of it is to attach it onto the figure. So I think that's what we're gonna do. We're gonna build, quote unquote, build this. I think what I'm gonna do is swap up the hands because I do want the plasma punches in. So for show purposes, let's do that. Right, so what I've done so far is just attaching the rocket boosters on the back of Mecha G here, because I feel like I'm gonna have to make a lot of significant changes, so this will not look the same in like a few minutes. So I want to quickly review this figure before I start applying the changes. First and foremost, one of my biggest questions is, will this look any different to the original one? And if they're gonna release a new version of this character, I sure hope I'm paying my money, which by the way, was quite a bit of money, for something that does stand out and is visibly different from the original one. So, let's compare it. Here is the original one from 3 years ago, the very first SH Monsterarts Mecha G. Automatically, I can already assure you, this looks tenfold better. The red and the gunmetal gray is what makes this terrifying, and this new design obviously absolutely takes the cake. So the major difference obviously is the additional red in this one to contrast the gray, but the gray itself has a major difference. You see, this gray is much darker. That's why I call this gunmetal gray. It's a much darker color. I don't know how well this camera is picking it up, but I can tell you with the naked eye, I'm looking at this, and this is definitely a much darker gray color. And then looking at the original one here, you know, it's a much lighter gray color, which is still pretty good. I don't mind it, it looks great, but you know, the dark gray is a much better contrast to the red strips in between its body. It's not even a fair competition of which one is better. This is great, this is better. Obviously, this one also comes with all the accessories, but I think pricing wise, I think they're the same price. I don't remember how much this was anymore. I paid retail price for this, I remember that for sure, but how much was it? I don't exactly remember. I think it's the same price as this one. I can't be too sure, I'll let you know. That is mainly the only comparison I wanted to do. Obviously, if you want to see the full review of the old Mecha G, you can click the link in the description, end screen, or title card after this video. But going back to this Mecha G, this is the main selling factor in my opinion. Sure, you can say the proton screams and the accessories is the main selling thing that's driving this figure to have people want it. But for me, it's just the design of this. Look at how the red is in between the crevices of the body, and that is how you contrast colors. This really is giving me like Transformer vibes. And like I said, this is probably the closest you can get to the actual in-movie design. Obviously, it's not as refined as it looks like in the movie. Obviously, this looks a lot more shinier. It's more polished for sure, because obviously this is a collectible figure. So obviously there is gonna be a much cleaner aspect to it. I'm happy with what I'm looking at here because they don't skip out on the red. It's not a lot, I'll say that. Don't expect like a ton of red. This isn't gonna be like the Playmates Mechagodzillas, but there is enough red that you can see this is like the movie design. As you can see, the dorsal plates have been pretty much the same as the old one here, so you have just a very small red tip on the top. You can see that's the old one right there. It's pretty much a one-for-one replica. So it's the same dorsal plates, same tails. So most of the red is on the main body. So as you can see over here, you have more of the red in the crevices there, in the chest plate, even in the neck, and in the beam here where the proton scream comes out. Oh, in here where the proton beam comes out. So there's a bit of red there. Let me see if I can get a closer view for you guys. Right there. Yeah, you can see it. That's a good attention to detail. That's very nice. Some red on the arms. So as you can see, the red is kind of just in between, kind of in its like inner wiring and cords and gears. That's where the red is. And you have the very subtle strips of red on the side here. So that's pretty nice. And then, yeah, I think that's pretty much all the red you're gonna get. Obviously same for this arm, and then on the legs we have some red on the ankles here. Pull this down. Yeah, so they don't go too crazy with the red, as you can see, but they place enough red in specific and carefully chosen spots that this looks like it is the movie design. You know, this actually looks like it's the one designed by Apex Cybernetics. I'm glad that they did that because this feels more natural. This doesn't feel like a Playmates Mecha G. That's the thing with Playmates, is that sometimes they stick to one color and they just overdo it on the toy slash figure. Bendai is often more careful, but obviously Haya does it so much better. But I gotta give credit where credit's due. Sometimes Bendai actually nails it with the coloring, just not in their Shimo, but for Mecha G here, it's pretty good. It's pretty good. Now, in terms of articulation, it's literally the same as the old Mecha G. Don't expect anything too crazy. There's nothing new. It's the same. So for some reason, my tail here, the ball socket here must be really loose, because look, there's like no friction to it. I just let go and it's just dripping to the bottom. Probably a very loose ball socket, I can't tell you. But obviously the whole tail is fully ball socketed. All of these ball sockets, so it gives you a bunch of flexibility on the tail. Look at that, so much flexibility. And then we have articulation on legs, the knees, even on the feet, slight articulation there. And then we have this where it flaps up. I guess if you want to like have him lean forward and bend the feet, then you can pull this up, gives more range of motion to do so, so that's pretty nice. It actually has that too on the old one as well. Yes, there are hydraulics here. Is that intentionally part of just the design, or do they actually have a purpose to prop this figure up? I don't know, but I'm just gonna say it's for the aesthetics to make him look more cybernetic. And then we have articulation, of course, on the arms, of course, forward and back. Shoulder blades open, and then of course you can open up the arms. It is very stiff, complete opposite of the tail. These are super stiff joints right now. That's wild. And then you can, of course, bend the elbow, straighten out the elbow. That's nothing new. And then, of course, ball socket on the hands. And you can close the hands, you can detach the hands. That is common SH Monsterarts knowledge. And then finally, ball socket on the neck. And of course, the head itself. You're mainly buying it because it's different looking Mechagodzilla and it comes with accessories. But other than that, yeah, don't expect nothing too new. It's the same exact mold as the OG, but I'm sure you lot have known that already. That is the basic review of the figure. So now we're gonna do a bunch of customizations to it. We're actually gonna apply some of the accessories onto it. Oh, I should also mention, where are the rockets? So, how did I install those rockets? So obviously you have his like missile launcher here. You tilt it up, and then there was a flap here on the side of his body. What you do is open up that flap, and then it will open up the 3 holes for you to stick the rocket boosters in, as you saw. So the assembly is very straightforward. It's so accessible, it's not a hassle. Open this, open that, boom. And then you just put them in. And obviously you're gonna need to keep them open to put the fuel, like the rocket fuel in, to actually look like he's boosting. So I'm gonna have to leave that open, but there you go. That's how you do it. Wow, as soon as you add all the stuff there, it just instantly changes the whole visual aesthetic of this figure. You may have noticed that I did a couple things. So number one, obviously I put the flames in. Then I completely swapped out the hands. You have to completely take out the hands, and then you put the plasma punches straight onto the ball socket. And then of course I put the proton scream itself in. This is the Mechagodzilla I was kind of expecting from Bendai. When they first did the SH Monsterarts, this was kind of the expectation I had for their Mecha G figure, but I wasn't expecting the rocket boosters or the plasma punches. All I wanted was this. I feel like the wait has been worth it, because now not only do we have the proton scream, we also have a bunch of other stuff to make this Mechagodzilla really stand out. There's obviously a lot more to be offered for this one. I mean, obviously, visually, which one looks better? I'm sure we know the answer here. And the great thing about this is that the proton scream itself is actually firmly attached onto the stand. So I can just detach it like this and have no issues of the proton scream just lying on the table or falling out. That has been a major issue, not only with Bendai, but with Playmates. And even some of the higher Godzillas, where are you gonna put the beam? If you're not gonna put it in his mouth, it's just gonna awkwardly fall out of his mouth. At least this is easily detachable and it's still maintaining its place. That's great. I'm super happy with that. So that is convenience at its best. Now looking at the jet fuel, you know, the rockets, once you put the flames in, this is what you're looking at the back. Yeah, that's visually appealing. I mean, it looks like he's in the motion of boosting. That is what I'm expecting when it comes to installing these things on there, so that fits so perfect. It doesn't awkwardly stand out. And then finally, the plasma punches themselves, they are firmly attached. I thought these were just gonna be awkwardly loose, like accessories you put on top of the hands. And if you bump this figure by accident, they come right off. No, these are straight ball socket attachments. As you can see, I'm playing with it, I'm just rotating it. It's done so well. Yes, yes, I've been wanting accessories like this. This is exactly, well, I wasn't really expecting it to be like this, but I am very impressed that it turned out like this, because this looks like Mechagodzilla is just really giving it his all. You can tell I'm a very big fan of this figure. I feel like this is the ultimate Mechagodzilla figure I could have gotten. I am already digging a lot of the previous toys, and of course the original SH Monsterarts one. I already was a big fan of it. I really like anything related to Mechagodzilla. I feel like this is the ultimate Mechagodzilla collectible you can get. I don't want to call this a toy because this is a very expensive one. Which, speaking of which, let's quickly talk about the price, because this is like 220 Canadian dollars. Obviously, it's not cheap. It's still cheaper than the Shimo, that's for sure. And I do think you're gonna get much better value out of this compared to the Shimo. You don't get much out of the Shimo for like $300, $400. At least for this one, you're paying the price for not just a much better designed figure, but you're also getting all these accessories to jazz up the look. Now, granted, you know, it would be nice if it was even cheaper. You know, like 150 already is being generous. I get it, this is a high-end, high-quality figure. That is the nature of the Bendai stuff. I get it, but you gotta still tone it down a little bit, because obviously it's a lot of money. Not everyone can afford it. So pricing can definitely go down, in my opinion. Is this better than the original Mecha G? Well, obviously, that's a given. I'm very happy with this, even though I feel like this was, you know, a long overdue figure. Should have been out a lot sooner. It's 2025, you know, this should have been out in like 2023 latest, maybe. I don't know. I'm just speculating here, but overall, this feels like Bendai actually listened to my critique. They probably didn't, but probably they listened to a lot of critiques, including mine, where I said, oh, it's lacking the proton screen beam. Would have been nice if we got it. And here we are with that exact thing. So I am very, very, very happy with what I got here. So out of 10, I'm gonna give it a solid 9 out of 10. The only thing I'd say was quite of a hassle is probably the posability. For some reason, the leg and the tail, they ain't working. They're not that solid compared to the OG ones. So often time the figure will just lean forward or lean backwards. There's a little bit of a structural integrity issue at the bottom there. But other than that, that's all I can ask for out of an SH Monsterarts Mecha G. They took what I already like and made it better. So I'm happy with it. So thanks for watching. Those are my thoughts on this Mecha G. Of course, if you want to check out the review of the original Mecha G, please do so. Check out the other SH Monsterarts reviews if you're interested, or my other Godzilla reviews in general. I've done more than just Bendai, clearly, so go check them out. Thanks for watching. Hit that like button, subscribe. We'll see y'all in the next one.